Chapter 10. A Nasty Experience. Mr. Muturi Wameri, a neighbor who used to work with my half-brother Daniel Bogo in Kiambu County Council, came me and told me, "My sister who works in Kenya Commercial Bank Githongori paid us a visit this evening unexpectedly. Our house is small and we have many children. Please let her come and sleep over in your house." I could not decline his request since he was a respectable family man who was a son-in-law of Peter Muigai Kenyatta, a good friend of my brother, a good neighbor, and a father to a little girl who was my friend. The little girl, Wadhiru, who later became a prominent city lawyer, the late Miss Warenge, and her twin sister were all my little friends. I welcomed the stranger and we slept. In the middle of the night, there was a knock on the door, but when I opened, it was Leonard. He did not talk to me, only held me and forcibly pulled me out. He was a very strong man. I tried to plead with him that there was a woman guest sleeping in the house and she's a stranger, but all my pleadings were ignored. He hurdled me into his small car and Triumph model KHA 123. As soon as they hurled me into his car, he immediately drove off, not giving a damn that I left the door wide open. I'm a stranger alone in the house. He swiftly turned the car around and drove off at high speed. I tried to sweet-talk him to turn back and at least tell the guests in the house to lock the door, but it was all ignored. He drove to some place in a coffee estate and parked the car in a remote place on Kiambu Limuru Road. I had really hard time in the car. He started asking me why he loves me so much and I did not want to love him back. He asked me to surrender to him and I declined every time he asked me a question. And I declined. He hit me and he behaved like that and hit me several times, but I never gave in to his demands. He molested me nearly the whole night until it was almost 5 a.m. In the morning, he drove me back home with the stern warning that I had no choice but to love him back. I arrived at 6 a.m. but the stranger was not there. I never saw her again and I did not have another day to talk to her brother. In the meantime, the Kiambu Township chief, who was a Luo, Mr. Samuel Ogola, was my immediate neighbor, came to our office to report Mr. Muigai, which with being nuisance to the neighbor since he was hearing commotion every time Leonard came. He said that I'm disturbing the peace in the town for the first time. Muigai did a commendable thing by putting Ogola and his allegations off since I was a peace-loving person, but unfortunately, Leonard, badly stung by the love bug and the way he had been brought up, was questionable due to his bad behavior. Therefore, Mr. Muigai told Chief Ogola that as long as I'm doing my work well in the office, what I was doing at home was not his problem. Now the whole of Kiambu town had known what was happening, and my brother kept on warning me. This got out of my hand. My mom sent my dad to go and find Leonard's parent and tell them to warn him to keep very far off me. Dad met his mother in the garden near the corner where there is a cross of a Catholic church nearby. The mother promised to talk to him. This fell on his daddy ears, whereby he even became murder and so never to leave me alone. An assault and police case and protection. He steadily prepared for an assault whereby he stormed the house and without a word stared raining blows on me. I was wearing high heels and whereby he removed one from my foot and hit his forehead. The blow threw him off balance and fell with thud. I opened the door and ran to Major Kibunja's house, which was fifth on the front floor, where Chief House was the first one on that floor. I knocked hard on the door and Major opened for me. I told Major to open for me and that my life was in danger. He opened the door for me and I ducked in trembling. I had told him I was in danger. He allowed me to sleep at the bottom of his bed. Leonard walked around the house where he circled Major's house the whole night. In the morning, Major asked me what I will do and I told him I'll go and report the matter to the police station. I first reported in my office, which was right opposite the police station, then crossed the road and reported the matter. The OCPD was known as Mr. Courier. He made a telephone call and told me to wait. After an hour, Leonard came in. Courier, who had a baritone voice with a deep bass, shouted to him, "Kimani, I know you and I know you from Kiganjo and I know you are a bad boy. Do you know this girl?" He quickly said, "Yes, I know. She's my girlfriend." Mr. Courier turned to me and asked me, "Do you know this boy?" And yes, I answered. Then he added, He's my boyfriend, but I want to end the relationship." He then turned to Leonard and told him, "Keep off this girl. If you continue pestering her, you'll be in trouble." My half-brother Daniel, who was working with Kiambu County Council, heard what was happening to me. He told me to get prepared to relocate to his house. For the second time, Leonard againstly arranged another assault against me. He came in the dead of the night, went to Kogoria petrol station on the eastern tip of the Indian Bazaar, a few meters from where my house was. He borrowed a screwdriver, came and removed the window panes, removed the window, then entered the house. It was in the dead of the night and I was fast asleep with menses pains, which made me like a dead person. I'd even slept earlier than usual due to the illness. I did not hear when he removed the window. As I slept, I thought I was in a dream when I had somebody in my bed. I screamed, but he held me tightly and said, "It's me, Leonard, don't worry." But at that time, he had already sexually assaulted me. This was a devil's son. The following morning, I went to the OCPD and reported a file was opened. After entering the report on their OB, instead of doing what they were required to do, they gave me the file and told me, "Endo staki yeye kotini. Go file a case in court." I had never been to a court of law, and being a native little girl, I did not know where to start. Therefore, I returned the file to them. After 2 days, Daniel, my brother, came and evacuated me to his house. Mr. Kuria, the OCPD, insisted that they will give me police protection, and he started sending 2 police officers every evening. My brother Daniel and his friends were heavy drinkers who partied throughout the night. His brother-in-law Gatei, who would also come to live with him while he attended school, the officers came in every evening and he spent evenings with them. Sometimes Gatei did not show up, and in such days, the officers started outdoing each other, saying, "You just go, I'm the one who will take care of her better." Each of them told them different things, that they were also men and as such, I should love them, but now I was feeling so bad and thought they may do even worse than Kimani had already done to me. I went and told the OCPD to stop sending the cops. He asked why, and I told him they were also bothering me. Nevertheless, I thanked him for protecting me. Then one morning before I left for the office, Leonard appeared. He never knocked the door. It was as if he knew Gatei had not shown up the previous day and had spent the night alone. He entered and locked the door, then blocked it. He literally took me hostage and said I will not leave the house that day. I was very dismayed. My guest came that morning. He was leaning against the door and was intimidating me as I tried to talk to him into opening the door. Anxiety took the better part of me as time went by. I was getting late and very anxious as minutes turned into hours past the official reporting time. In the office, there were also ushers waiting for me, wondering what had happened since I had never gone to the office late. When they realized I might not turn up and I guessed I must be in trouble, they made a phone call to my brother's office and asked him where I was. He dashed to the police station, took 2 police officers who accompanied him to the house. They found the door locked and Leonard holding me captive in the house. They ordered to open the door. When he hesitated, they said they would shoot the door open, and that is when the hesitation opened the door. He had taken me hostage for 3 hours, whereby I reported to the office at 12 noon instead of 8 a.m. His bigotry and bad behavior misled him into thinking that all women must love and give in to his demands. In the meantime, people started taunting me, saying, "Wachana na huyo ni mgumu sana. Leave that one alone. She's too tough." Dania, the Mkamba officer manager, confided to me that I had been nicknamed Mgumu, the hard one. Ever since Chief Wasala came reporting me to the boss, when I ignored his escape habits, he made sure I saw him every morning, whereby he used to squint his eyes every so often because we were immediate neighbors. I could read his intention and frustrated each one of them. I pretended not to see how they behaved and never talked to him until the day he came reporting me in the office with disturbing peace, which Mr. Omungai ignored. More about Leonard the Brute. Back to Leonard's story. It was now in May and expected my menses, which never came. I felt so bad due to what was going through. To me and my parents, Leonard had become like a bogeyman since he swore he'll never pursue me regardless of what I'll do or where I'll go. Some close friends of my parents devised a plan. The representative said, "Since that boy is of bad behavior, we all know that a girl has always more than one suitor. Tell her to bring us the next man on the line." What a wonderful advice. As the days went by, Leonard was arrested due to his rudeness to traffic police because he resisted stopping every time they waved him down. He could insult them instead of stopping, then drove at high speed. He had been ambushed and shackled with manacles of his wrist and taken to the police station, then sued for his bad behavior to the officers. He was given a prison term of about a month. He was allocated to be going with others, sharing short prison terms to cut grass and punishment he never did. Instead, he corrupted the police officer in charge to an extent that he could use police office phone to call men. Upon his release, he behaved the same to the traffic police office when they stopped him when they had laid another ambush for him, but that time he jumped the ambush and ran away. The force knew he was a military police officer working in Isili Air Base. He also deserted his job, thereby forcing the employer to seek assistance from Kiambu Police Station to apprehend him. He came in the dead of the night and parked his car against my door, where he left just a small space for my way out of the house. And for the next several weeks, almost 2 months, the car lay there as the police and military police looked for him. Since my house was right opposite the police station, the cops could see that car through their office windows. They summoned me to tell them where the owner of the car was. How could I know since it was parked there while I was fast asleep? I never had it being parked. It only gave me a shock one morning when I was getting out to go to the office when I found it next to my door. I should have reported this to the police, but do not forget, the law enforcers had earlier acted as though in league with him. Then one morning, while going to the office, a big Rolls-Royce bus rolled and stopped before I crossed the road. The driver asked me, "Girl, where's the owner of that car?" I immediately remembered that Mr. and Miss Muiro had told my parents that Leonard's father is a bus driver. I looked at him and told him. The car was parked there in the dead of the night and I don't know where he is. One morning I received a letter. The writing on the envelope was neat and different from that of my suspect. Upon opening the envelope, strange things had been written. It had been written, "From Port Harcourt, Nigeria, to my smiling face. P.O. Box, forget me not, etc." In the letter was a lot of ranting and raving that I was so much love and that I'll use the last bottom of my coin until I see your end. It was his poor handwriting that ended the letter with his pseudonym, Rangaranga Werimo-san. I was so much crushed by the letter at the same time. I thought it was as stupid as he was handsome. I could not stop thinking about that letter and that I was pregnant with his child. I was now in a difficult situation. After a few days, friends of mine proposed abortion on the point they had known what had happened. Since what had happened was out of my control, God, being the only giver of life, had found it fit to let me become pregnant because of an acquaintance rape. Had already decided I would not lose the child. Leonard called again and asked where he was. He said he was in Mwanza, Tanzania. I asked him about the letter, who helped him to write it. He was honest and said he had a cousin, a good friend of his, who was a police air wing as a pilot, who they shared their names, and that he was the one who helped him to write that letter. I was now torn between telling him the condition I was in, keep it to myself. I just decided to tell him. He promised he will come to help me out of the problems facing me about that issue. He said it will not be immediately, but I'll come over. After 2 weeks he came. By that time, my mom had known, though they had automatically knew he would be responsible. I had not told my mother or anybody else that I had been sexually assaulted. My mother and a friend of ours came to see me in the office. I escorted them to the bus stage, but before we got there, Leonard walked past us. It was as if the other woman knew him because she said, "Show us that suitor of yours, we would like to see him." I pointed to him, she asked, "Do you love him because he's tall and handsome? Is that the reason you love him? He'll never marry you." She spat out. Soon we were out of the stage where they boarded a bus and said goodbye to me. Must I tell you that the same week Leonard took me to his parents' home in Tinganga village, but since he knew his chances of being accepted by my parents were very slim, he did not bother to introduce me to his parents. Now, Leonard's goose had been cooked since my brother Sam was in the office and knew of his delinquency entering into the hangars illegal while he was in the military, policeman and not the airman. That evidence, plus the other testimonies of how the family was poor, ended his chances of being accepted in my family. My parents declined to have him as a son-in-law. He pleaded with me to switch talk them into accepting him with a Kikuyu saying, "Torea nyinyi na ido imoko nitogudhukuma." We are young and strong, and our own hands lies riches. I tried the trick, but my parents told me his parents are very poor since his father is a bus driver and his mother leaves home at 5 a.m. for Marigiti Retail Market on Haile Selassie Avenue, trades there until late in the evenings and gets back home at 8 p.m. I did not argue with my parents, but I wondered what was wrong with a couple working that hard for the young family, though riches had not come their way. I was so young to argue my case. However, they told me to marry him at my own risk. At the same time, they did not want me to have a bastard. I was between a rock and the hard place. In a rejoinder, they said, "Bring us the next man who wants you, and we shall accept him." I had no choice but to do what they wanted, since I never knew how to disobey my parents.